You are listening to Verba Managed, where words do remain. You're scrolling through Instagram on a lazy evening and you come across Rainier, your classmate, announcing online that she's planning to visit home for a while and asking your followers what medicines they need that she could bring back from France. She asks you and her friends from university for donations, anything, and you wonder what kind of home she must be flying back to. This is the reality for Lebanese people worldwide. Expats and visitors scrambling to send back resources and medication to their struggling friends and family, and even strangers, back home in Lebanon. It could seem that the country is running on the charity of its sizable diaspora, which is only growing by the day as masses of Lebanese are emigrating to what they hope is a brighter future. Welcome to another episode of the podcast series Right the Wrongs. Every Wednesday and Friday, Right the Wrongs raises public awareness on pressing human rights issues and creates an incubator of activism. Today, we'll be addressing the plight of hospital and cancer patients in Lebanon. Lebanon is currently undergoing an economic crisis that has been described as the worst the world has seen since the mid-19th century, with the Lebanese lira losing more than 90% of its value since 2019. This is caused by decades of mismanagement by a corrupt and demonstrably incompetent government that preyed on the small Mediterranean country's deep religious and sectarian divides for decades, before this administration's resultant inevitable economic crash around 2 years ago. Nearly exactly 2 years ago, on October 17th, 2019, was a day that marked the country's history as one where people of all religions, regions, and socioeconomic backgrounds came together in Lebanon's major cities to protest against these decades of corruption and incompetent management. They demanded better living standards, more accountability from more government officials, and, in short, a mass resignation to make way for a new, secular, and anti-sectarian system. While a spark of revolution was ignited in the population, besides a few nominal resignations, nothing much has changed on a political level, and the ruling classes continue to plunge the country into a deep crisis on all fronts, most pointedly demonstrated by the devastating port explosion that took place on August 4th, 2020, killing over 200 people, injuring thousands, and leaving over 300,000 people homeless. "My government killed my people" became a popular slogan during the ensuing protests and demonstrations continuing to this day, demanding for justice that has yet to be given. This is evidenced further by the difficult plight being endured by the chronically ill in Lebanon today. Once the medical hub of the region famed for the high quality of its medical services, the country's medical infrastructure has fallen apart, with many doctors emigrating due to the unbearable conditions of life, and patients scrambling to find their medication amongst an unforeseen and crippling medicine shortages. Hospitals are hardly able to secure diesel to keep generators and life-saving machines operating day to day. Lebanese healthcare workers have warned for months of declining stocks of vital medical supplies. Many pharmacy shelves are empty as the country's foreign reserves are depleted on the back of a subsidy scheme used to finance fuel, wheat, and medicine that costs the state around $6 billion a year. Doctors are often left with no recourse but to advise patients to try to get the medicine from abroad, a difficult task for anyone, but especially the poor, whose ranks are swelling in the economic crisis. More than half of Lebanon's 6 million people are now under the poverty line. Wahiba Duggan, who has lung cancer, reached out to relatives in France who sent enough medicine for 2 sessions of chemotherapy. The relatives refused to be reimbursed, but Duggan worries about having to pay for future medicine. A government-subsidized dose for 1 session in Lebanon costs $40, a tenth of the price in France. Many others, such as Sadie Mubarak, a breast cancer patient, are turning to social media for donations from strangers. After months of chemotherapy, Mubarak had a mastectomy in December 2020. She is now undergoing therapy that is supposed to take 10 years, consisting of daily pill and monthly hormone injection to make sure that cancer doesn't return. As the shortages grew more dire and Mubarak was unable to find the hormone, the family posted a story on Instagram along with Mubarak's cell phone number. For the next day and a half, The phone did not stop ringing. Lebanese from all over the world offered to send her the medication. 6 days after she was due for an injection, a traveller from the neighbouring country of Jordan hand-delivered her the drug and refused to be compensated. Dr. Joseph McDeaksey, who heads the Haematology and Oncology Department at the St. George Hospital University Medical Centre, estimates around 10% of cancer patients have been unable to source their treatment in the past couple of months. "We need an immediate solution," McDeaksey said. "I can't tell my patients this is a crisis and ask them to wait until it eases, because this disease has no patience." Lebanon faces enormous levels of foreign debt accumulated over the years, reaching nearly $37 billion in 2021. This indebted state blocks it from being able to raise funds from abroad, which has wiped out many subsidies, the most recent of which was fuel a little over a month ago. However, cancer medication is still being subsidized, meaning in order for agents to import them, they have to wait for financing from the central bank, whose reserves are running drier day by day. This holds cancer patients in limbo, with opposing views on how to handle the subsidy by the central bank and the health ministry. However, if subsidies of cancer drugs were eased so that they could become available, the extensive cost of cancer treatment means that many families, already struggling to bear the brunt of the economic downfall, will likely not be able to afford their treatments. Some chemotherapy treatments, which can cost as much as $5,000 per session, are currently subsidized so that the patient pays around $400, with the state bearing the rest of the cost. Caretaker Health Minister Hamad Hassan, who has been raiding depots storing large quantities of drugs and medical supplies, partly blamed the shortages on traders hoarding supplies. The country's other crises are also contributing to the daily hardships of cancer patients. Due to recent fuel shortages resulting in hours-long wait and lines at the fuel stations, Saidi Mubarak says that she worries whether she'll be able to find enough gasoline in order to be able to drive to Beirut for each of her treatments. In late August, dozens of cancer patients gathered outside the main UN offices in Beirut demanding international help. "We refuse to have a life countdown," reads one banner. Another one said, "Our government is killing us." This situation for cancer patients, as well as everyone with chronic diseases, is getting more dire as the country shows no sign of solving this issue in the foreseeable future. While the Lebanese community abroad has been heroic in its efforts to help those back home in any way, patients are living day to day, constantly anxious about where next to obtain their medicine and wondering how they could possibly afford it. Hopefully you can understand now why Rainier has been so frantic to fill her suitcase with medicine and supplies before her trip back home to Beirut. That's the end of today's episode in Winte'u. Feel free to engage with us on Facebook and Instagram, and join us for further discussions on our Telegram group, or leave us a comment at theverbamanetpodcast@gmail.com. This episode was written by Tatiana and Shania, produced by Luis, voiced by Mason, and brought to you by Right the Wrongs under Verbamanent. You can find the program wherever you find your podcasts, bringing you detailed updates on pressing human rights issues. Until next time, take care.